Hey, you guys, Nancy and I are back. It's a double header.
Yeah.
It's baseball season. There's a lot going on, and we want to talk to you about what the Democrats are trying to do to remove parental rights, and really for a party that doesn't like separation of child separation, they're sure doing a hell of a job here in North Carolina. Not only are we, talking to Democrats about the Democrats, we're talking to Republicans because we need our representatives to stand up and to protect us right now. So we're going to talk about a couple of bills here. So Nancy, we're talking about the there's two bills. There's three bills we're talking about. There's HB 946. HB 946. I'm going to drop this into the chat box here, and it is sound basic education for every child. Nancy, are you? This is by Julie Von Heffron, radical nut job who is notorious for proposing things that are terrible for kids. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this bill is insane. I mean, it really is. Like, it's mind blowing how anyone could support this. And I feel like they are absolutely weaponizing Leandro to go way beyond what they should be doing. I mean, this is, it was depressing reading through all of this and the crazy requests and how all over the place it is and how poorly defined things are and the amount of money involved.
So Leandro is what you're going to hear a lot of, Nancy, because Leandro is, it is a particular court case, but the outfall from that is that there's copious amounts of money that people think can be used as our piggy bank to support everything, which includes a sound basic education. So radical nut jobs have racialized this and radicalized this, and it's insane. So they want copious amounts of taxpayer money to go towards. Give us the highlights.
Well, a lot of commissioned for planning for recruiting teachers and maintaining teachers, especially state-trained teachers, and an emphasis on teachers of color and diversity. I mean, there's so much in this bill. Recruitment tools for online recruitment tools. There's also a teacher fellows program that they want to recruit and prepare students to be highly effective teachers. Originally, the bill was written to specify STEM and special ed, but they crossed that out. So, I mean, we need math teachers and science teachers. Corey DeAngelis just published stats today where only 22% of kids across the country are proficient in science by the 12th grade. So now I guess they're saying a teacher in anything. So like history or, but we need those science and math teachers. So they even made it more broad.
What they're doing is racist. So what Julie Van Heffron is a racist. I'm talking to you, Democrats. You have to rein in this Democrat. You know why? She's so racist, Nancy, that she said, we are no longer going to prioritize in North Carolina getting teachers of color to teach math, to teach science, the important things. We're no longer going to do that because we have to, recruit diverse people from diverse communities to teach. As if Black teachers are not capable of teaching math and science. She's a racist. This is racism. This is outrageous. You can have both. You can have teachers of color, of all backgrounds that can teach science and math. Excuse me. This is racism. It's racism straight up.
Yeah. And they want to use the UNC systems to identify and encourage students of color. And they want to provide training that includes culturally responsive teaching. Yeah. I mean, until presumed otherwise, there's no definition here. And I haven't seen anything yet in UNC that's culturally responsive training that isn't based on identity matrices and oppressor oppression stuff. So that's they're just saying it out loud, that's what they want to do. Recruitment bonuses for teachers who go to low performing schools, up to like $3 to $6 million in funds to implement that grant program. A DRIVE program, which was, I think, from Governor Cooper originally, that is for educators of color, racially, ethnically, linguistically diverse educators, $2 million for that. That includes also alternative certificate programs, which I didn't see a definition for. I could have missed that. So I don't know what an alternative certificate program is. And also nonprofit organizations can get these grant monies to work to recruit educators of color. So they're going to enrich nonprofit organizations with our tax dollars.
As long as it's ours, I have no problem. But it never is. It never is.
Right? When these grants.
When these Democrats want to fund things, it's never people on both sides. It's absolutely ever. And so, yeah, it's for political friends. Democrats are notorious for having their political friends, rewarded for this stuff.
Yeah. So that made me nervous. Also, the Office of Equity Affairs is in there. And my notation reading that section was just, holy crap, this is bad. That was my takeaway. It's $400,000, but they're giving the Office of Equity Affairs essentially, from my interpretation, a whole authority over every single policy, making sure that it's fair and equitable or whatever that is. So whoever is in charge of the Office of Equity Affairs basically has so much power to yay or nay anything based on dubious and non-scientific standards. Like if they feel like it's not equitable enough, they'll poo-poo it, or only advance policies that they feel are equitable. The checks and balances are going to be non-existent.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of there's equity training in there. There's a community school model for high poverty schools, which includes the whole school model based on the CDC. So federal government running schools.
Treating your child without parental consent needed.
Right.
Treating your child
areas.
That's right. And again,
power away from lower socioeconomic status people.
This is an example. The mask is off. You know who Democrats really are. We cannot recruit Black teachers who know how to teach science and math, so we have to scratch that part out. That is a racist making this bill, number one. Number two, it's saying, well, we're going to have these community schools where we're going to offer free healthcare, free this, free that, and in exchange for removing the civil liberties of every single low-income parent and child. So there's always a quid pro quo with Democrats, right? Mm-hmm. The people that get ground up in the gears are the people that they purport to help. So having these community schools there and having, low-income children be their guinea pig, this cannot stand.
Yeah.
Why aren't they trying that? I mean, it's a thesis that,
it's experimental, and they can experiment on these low-income kids if they want, collect their information, data, indoctrinate them, all the stuff to some of the people with the least power is what they're doing this. And it's very scary. They also have the universal, or essentially what I consider the universal pre-K stuff in here, which is eventually to spend $26.5 million for pre-K by 2027.
Separate the child from their family.
Yeah, heaven forbid a kid spend the first couple of years with their parents. I mean, heaven forbid the kid gets to play and be at home and explore the environment, within their own home life. And because the public school system has been so successful with everything else lately, K through 12.
They've been a train wreck. They could mess up a one-car parade, and we know that. And so that's just one of the bills, Nancy, that you and I had the pleasure of looking at today. Another one, and this is absolutely terrifying. I'm going to give you the bill information. It's funds for school mental health support persons. Now, on its face, I think it's hard to argue that, right? I mean, we're all going a little nutty, right, after all the stuff that's gone on in the world the way it is. But that's not what this is, guys. I'm going to pop up the text for it. I want you to read it yourself. That's not what this is. This bill wants to fund copious amounts of invasive surveys and basically what will become medical treatment or medicalizing of everyday behavior for children without parental consent. They want to remove the parent out of the equation. You need to know this because the age of consent, Nancy, we talked about this on the last broadcast. What is the age of consent for psychological treatment in North Carolina?
0.
0. That's right. This bill is, in my mind, Nancy, I don't know how you feel. This is the most dangerous. Bill 953. We absolutely have to contact our reps immediately. I put the text there. I put the number. It is taking away parental rights because, look, once you've got mental health professionals in every school, it legitimizes collecting private data on children. It legitimizes making diagnoses of children without the parents knowing about it. And further, it opens the door to give children dangerous medication like antidepressants, Ritalin, Adderall, right? Antipsychotics and puberty blockers. Mm-hmm. North Carolina is terrible. Our age of consent is 0. At least California, it's 12. We have no protection here. We have no reason to trust our own government.
Yeah, it's, again, like usual, they weaponize something to get what they want. So they use, first of all, they have no data. So they have these ratios that they want the number of counselors to children to be, but there's nothing to suggest that even if you get those to those ratios, that'll be helpful. I don't know what data they're using. And then in the beginning, they say, whereas increased school, social worker school, no, I'm sorry. There was about the ongoing coronavirus pandemic has seen an increase among students in isolation, loneliness, anxiety, self-harm. So my issue is that it wasn't the coronavirus pandemic that caused the isolation, loneliness, anxiety, and self-harm. It was the policies surrounding the COVID pandemic that a lot of the left pushed to begin with in terms of
total Democrats. Total
closing schools and NCAA pushing continued closed schools. I mean, there are schools that have been open for months, and there's been no real data to suggest that kids are spreading this in schools. And all the data links the closures not to number of COVID cases, but to the party involved and whether there's a strong teacher union present. So to use the coronavirus pandemic as an excuse to justify more mental health workers in the schools without any data and without even any referral to the fact that it was the policies, not the actual virus itself, is
it creates a problem.
Yeah, it's narcissistic. It's disgusting.
Look, I find this curious, and I want to tell you why. The only thing, you guys, that doesn't require consent in North Carolina of a minor to treat, there's 2 things: pregnancy prevention, which is weird, but at least you would have to be 13 or 14 for that. Got it. Don't like it. Got it. But mental health, any mental health issue. So what did NCDPI? Well, probably CDC and a lot of other agencies. What is NCDPI doing? They specifically carve out putting mental health professionals in because they know that they can diagnose and treat and possibly bill insurance and bill Medicaid all through that without the parents knowing. I mean, I think a sports medicine clinic would be more advantageous, right? A lot of things happen at school. There's a lot of sports that's going on. I mean, Lord knows I would love to have a one-stop shop, right? Where I could take my kids to get their pre-sports physical. But this is manipulation and trickery of our children and our parents.
Yeah, and it's just scary, the lack of data in this bill. I mean, the only thing they say is 1 in 7 children have at least one treatable mental health disorder. Okay, does that mean they're all not, the 1 in 7 children don't see anyone outside of school, that this is within schools? Like, where is this coming from? What's the citation? There's no real...
This 953, Bill 953, I think, guys, right?
Yeah, 953.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's... I mean, for the seriousness of the money that they're spending and putting in all these mental health counselors and stuff, this is an incredibly short bill with no data.
I want you guys to know out there that the DPI has requested $60 million for part of this, what we're talking about. So $60 million of taxpayer money. Now they're already getting federal money also to do this stuff. So they're going to do it, right? And so we need to make sure it happens. But what we do not want are these two bills passed, because then we have a runaway train and we have no rights. So we're asking, the Democrats are doing this. Unfortunately, a lot of times they're in lockstep with this stuff. We have to be protected from this. We cannot have mental health clinics in every single school. Now, a proponent of this is Catherine Truitt. She has been very open about wanting a school, nurse, and I think mental health in all the schools. So, she's in it. She said today, or she said in a video we found today, pardon me, that she is lock solid and will operate as a unit, right, with State Board of Education. Did you see that video?
Yes, I watched it. It was recorded, I think, in January
7th. Was that your takeaway?
Yeah, she mentioned something about an olive branch when she was elected, or right before she was elected, or reaching out for an olive branch, and then working in tandem with the Board of Education, the NCDPI, essentially working as one with the Board of Education.
I have that exact quote.
Yeah.
I want to put for you guys the quote. The reason I bring this out is that we would be in better shape if we had a little bit of separation, right? A little bit of checks and balances.
Yeah.
That's what we would want, right? If the board, and by the way, there are great Republicans on the board that vote time and again not to push this stuff. Mark Robinson's one of them. Treasurer Falwell, he's another one. White is another one. But there aren't enough votes.
Right. It was already known to be more of a Democrat-led board. So.
Yeah, I mean, we needed a firewall. I'm looking for the exact quote. I cannot find it. We needed a firewall. We needed a separation. And so it's very upsetting that Catherine Truitt has said, I'm not going to be a firewall. Whatever the board is doing, you can expect we're going to be a unit. And so I want to let you know, this whole child, Nancy, the whole child NC model, they've got several memorandums of agreement with treaters or clinicians. So the clinicians will go in and they will give medication, or could legally give medication to children. And again, age of consent, 0 in North Carolina. So very bad stuff. And again, we would expect, instead of Catherine Truitt, rah, 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 sis, boom, bah, great, let's put them in every one. We would expect that at least you'd be transparent and say, hey, we believe in, here are the parameters, right? Here's what's going to happen with the data. Here's what's going to happen with the treatment. Jamie Falkenberry, who is her right-hand man on the right, if you will, has been calling GOP officials and saying, no, we have no power. We're not trying to do that, etc. And yet you and I are looking at their budget. That's their work product.
Yeah. I'm at a loss. Like I really am. I mean, I was blown away by the Democrat bill for the funding for the,
yes,
and all of the stuff they had put in there. It's really disturbing. And then these little mental health bills that they're trying to slip in there too. I mean, we should be protected from this stuff. Parents and students should be protected from this stuff. And if they're going to get into it, it's sure as hell better have every single piece of data that cannot be shredded, follow the science, right? In those bills to justify any of it. And that it looks like someone wrote it up in like 30 minutes.
Well, because the budget was done first. And Nancy, I want to tell you that the budget from the DPI, let me tell you how this works. The budget came out. Let me make sure I'm precise on this. I believe, let's see the date. Can you throw me the date on one of these bills when they first came out?
So HB 923 is red stamped as May 10th, 2020.
Oh, okay. Then I can be accurate.
That's the social emotional one in kindergarten.
All right. So I'm looking at HB 953. And so look, the budget from the DPI came out way before that. So the budget came out first, right? And so The intention from DPI is to do this, right? And they just got a wackadoodle to sponsor the bill, and this would justify it. Because look, you could say that the legislature makes some policies for the school, but the DPI, especially when they get federal funding, also makes other policy. That's the fact. So we've been telling you guys, go to your school board, go to your school board. We see that school boards are getting overpowered by what's going on at the DPI. So again, we have a hard target on Catherine Chulitt and exposing everything that's going on in the DPI, right? And going on with the school board. And the Democrats are putting these bills out, but the DPI was kind of leading the charge beforehand.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is all very much in that weaponized Leandro bill, very much reminiscent of a lot of what James Ford was saying during the minutes, and reminiscent of his research stuff that he does through Creed and what he said publicly. Very reminiscent of that, and the Office of Equity, the power they're giving them, is reminiscent of. Honestly, to be honest, it reminded me of like Ibram Kendi's suggestion to have some type of like federal office of racism that would outlaw various racist practices that were totally subjective. I mean, it was that kind of thing. It was just like,
whether it's intentional or not, we know from James Ford's own words and videos, if Black students and white students perform differently, that ought to be a crime, whether it's intentional or not, and that he was going to figure out some policy, or would like to figure out some policy to criminalize that.
Yeah, I didn't understand the Office of Equity in this bill, why they would get so much power, and it was very
overhead.
And it's like the Ministry of Truth or Love, or one of those from the Orwell novel.
Yeah, I mean, what we're looking at is crazy. And so in summary, you guys, we've got a couple of things. I mean, we're looking at doing, exposing this through the media, obviously. We're looking at doing a legislative action day, probably in the next 10 days. We would like to do that, where, again, if it's just 50 of us this time and not, 250 like it was last time, that's fine. We would like to see 100 parents down here. We'd like to see 100 parents going and educating our legislators on why these bills are bad ideas. Now, between now and then, Nancy, you and I are going to educate the bejeepers out of people, right? We're going to have these Facebook Lives. Mm-hmm. We're going to get into the research. We're going to keep doing research. We're going to write. We're going to do all this stuff, and we need you to share it. But we are asking for 100 well-informed parents to stand with us in the next 10 days when we make the appointment to go down there. We've got to educate our legislators. Republicans, you have got to stand up against this madness. This is madness.
Yeah, there was one more, HB 923, which was the pilot program to implement social and emotional learning in kindergarten.
Republicans, yeah.
And there are actually some Republicans that co-signed on that bill. So I encourage everyone to look that one up, because this is... the social emotional learning thing really needs to be reined in here, because it's going in so many crazy directions. And one of the models used at UNC incorporates, critical race theory and systemic racism and all this stuff. And I just don't understand the push for all of this, other than
SPL surveys. Right. I mean, SPL is the surveys. And so what they're telling you guys is, hey, we need, for social emotional learning, we need to have the surveys so we could tailor our intervention that way, except for they're using those surveys to also diagnose mental disorders without the parents knowing.
Yeah.
And they're able to provide medical treatment without the parents knowing. It's the Democrats and the Republicans, and we have the DPI, obviously. We have the Democrats, and to my mind, one key Republican, they're trying to take your parental rights and crushing them into dust. And if you hear someone say that the NCDPI has absolutely nothing to do with things going on in the district, that is a liar. That is a liar. And we know that because we've got letters from lawyers in Pitt County in that district, letters saying that the DPI controls these surveys. They control the panorama surveys. They control mandating the SCL, right? And so you have to know a lot of this stuff, Nancy, comes from the top. It's coming in via the budget, state budget, federal spending, which, the federal spending that they're getting to do this stuff and they're enacting policy, legislature they're not involved with that. Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely coming from the top, because if it wasn't, then they wouldn't be requesting all of this extra stuff. I mean, it makes no sense to argue that they have no influence and it's all the local school boards. I mean, the amount of stuff they're requesting through this Neanderthal stuff is
it's unfair. It's unfair. And I'm going to tell you, Nancy, who it's unfair to, as much as I loathe to, I'll give credit where it's due. You know, we're finding out that school board members on the right and the left, they're like, look, we changed the questions to these SEL surveys and the state changed them right back. So, you know, we have to put control of these schools back into parents' hands. That's the bottom line. Is I want it in my hands. I want it in your hands. I want it in the hands of every sane parent. These are a bunch of lunatics that are lying and they're pointing the fingers. Oh, it's his fault. Oh, it's his fault.
Yeah.
Bull.
No one's responsible for anything, but we're going to grow it bigger and bigger and have random subjective offices that don't really have meaningful language. It really
blows my mind. Do we want the teachers union? Do we want the teachers union in charge of diagnosing and treating your child?
Right.
Do we want the NCAE in charge of that? Because it's about to happen. The same organization that's called parents white supremacists, horrible people. Do you want them punishing your child because it's something that you've said on social media? We're getting there. We're very close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, the NCAE has controlled whether the schools open, whether they close, whether they wear masks, etc. Do you want them in charge of administering medication?
Or in charge of collecting the data or having access to this data? I mean, the equity office's proposal includes access to every single record and whatever. I mean, I have to go back and read it again, but it's basically like an all-seeing.
In the name of equity.
Yeah.
In the name of equity. This is Germany. I am not kidding you. In the name of equity.
Yeah, Eastern.
Yes, in the name of equity, people have been called white supremacists. In the name of equity, they have been asked to stereotype themselves already. In the name of equity, people have been abused in the North Carolina public school system. So in the name of equity, any healthcare being administered without my permission, without your permission, without parent permission is a problem. Democrats had their name all over these bills. A Republican who is in charge of administering these programs is, again, not being honest, covering this up, and this is wrong.
And I even found documentation from CASEL, CASEL, the program they want to use, where they talk about equity of outcomes.
Of outcomes. And they're extending it to health, Nancy. We have in the data, they're extending it to health. Why in the hell is someone in our schools talking about extending equity into health in our child's lives?
Money.
Oh boy, Sarah. We've got where are the tweets and the quotes? Man, we've got, you know what you just told Sarah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that to my considerable to-do list. We're going to put a spot on our website for James Ford's greatest hits. Would you like that? Do you want me to see if I can share my screen with you? I'm going to try something that technologically may be well in advance of what I can do. If I can do that, you guys, I'm going to share the tweets with you right now. Can we do it?
Was the William Fesperman tweet where he voiced support for a radical.
What about the one, y'all? What about the one where he came out and said, "Jeremiah Wright, you're my boy. I love you. You're misunderstood." Do you remember that one? Okay, hold on. Let's see. Sarah, hang on. I'm coming.
So another thing about this Office of Equity, I mean, they do say, in carrying out its duties, the Office of Equity Affairs has authority to obtain full and unrestricted access to all records, information, and data in the possession of or legally available to the Department of Instruction and State Board of Education. So they have access to everything. And this Office of Equity Affairs, from going through the board minutes the past 2 years, was the idea of Mr. Ford, James E. Ford,
Wait a minute.
fan of red pedagogy and the Black Panthers. And he modeled it on the Wake Office of Equity Affairs. He brought in Rodney Trice to talk about the Wake Office of Equity Affairs, which uses learning for justice, identity politics, privilege matrices, all of this stuff, and has been completely questionable in terms of their transparency and their usage of funds, as well as introducing CRT and then lying about it. Yeah, so.
All right, guys, I'm going to try to do this. Are you ready? Oh, I'm getting an error message. Okay, I don't have it. What he said, okay, is important. All right, would it help you guys if all right, so I'm going to try to copy and paste. How's that? Yeah, it's very important because he hates cops. He hates anyone white. The dude absolutely straight up hates. And so he calls everybody a racist. Hold on, let's see if I can share with you the video of Ford. We're really getting into some high tech here. Hang on. All right, let's see if I can share this, a video file. How's that? Let's see. All right. Yeah, and I think you're right. It is important. I mean, this goes to motive of the guy who has the keys to the thing. All right, let's see if we can share this, guys, with you.
To live by, that is to make racism illegal. Literally start thinking about that. How do we make it unlawful for these sort of inequities to persist? And not just as something that, is morally or ethically good to have, but something that should actually be deemed illegal, and building the structures in place to ensure that happens.
Okay, so that's one. Let's see.
Oh, I have a Fesperman tweet if you want me to.
I don't know. This is really high math here. So he says to make racism illegal. I mean, look, that he should be in jail, right? The guy should be in jail. Thought police. Yeah, Dennis, because he goes on to say in the other clip, he goes on to say that we want to make it illegal, whether it's intentional or not.
Right.
And then he goes on to say, we want to make it illegal. And then if there's different outcomes for Black and white people, that's intentional. I mean, that's manifestly illegal, and we're going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's writing the policies.
Mm-hmm.
He has very little oversight. And Catherine Truitt ended up hiring his closest associates for first act in office. I keep saying this. People are like, don't make it personal. This isn't personal. These are the people who have oversight over our entire educational system. It's important to know who they are, how they think, what they're doing. Personnel is policy. We have to do this. Yeah, what he said as a leader is absolutely important because, look, I mean, again, little oversight, and Catherine Truitt has top to bottom stopped her DPI with people that James Ford has worked with, still works with. So we need to keep an eye on that. So what I'm going to do, Sarah, you've given me some things to do. I'm going to put all of James Ford's tweets on our website because I do think that everybody should see this. I'm also going to put up a video. Wait, actually, I can do this now. Hold on. No, I can't. I'm going to put up the video of Catherine Truitt saying that we are one, that there is no line of demarcation where the radical James Ford ends and she begins. Again, on the school board, Catherine does not vote at the state school board level. That is true. But Republicans, we're in the minority. And these radical Democrats are being roughshod. Catherine Truitt is saying, we're with them, right? Definitely not with us. Democrats are trying